Madam Chair, I have a motion to ask Superintendent Littlefield to contact the Manchester Superintendent to find out why the bi-weekly updates on class sizes have not continued this fall, and ask that they be started immediately. Also ask if there are any current problems related to lack of resources with regards to books, computer equipment, drop classes, or anything else that would prevent Manchester from meeting minimum state of New Hampshire education standards as defined by our current 2003 high school maintenance agreement. We would also like to see the reports, if they exist, on violent acts occurring within the Manchester high schools that Hooksett children attend this year compared to the last 5 years. And if I get a second, I'll discuss this.
Second.
So included in the packet this week, thank you, Dr. Littlefield, for providing this October 18th update for the high school numbers. Just a summary, we have a total of 618 Hooksett High School students. And for grade 9, the freshmen, we have 144. And taking a look at that high school monthly enrollment data collected October 18th, provided by the administration, something became very obvious to me. Using these numbers and looking at 2 sets of data, I believe the Hooksett School Board has dropped the ball with regards to looking out for the welfare of the majority of Hooksett High School age children. If you take a look at the pie charts I provided from this data, at the overall Hooksett student population of public and private schools, we can see that 70% of the Hooksett High School age children attend Manchester schools. Taking a look at the data of the freshman students, you can quickly see that 50% of the graduating 8th graders from last year chose to attend Manchester schools, when arguably Manchester experienced one of the toughest teacher and resource cutbacks we have ever seen. This data clearly tells us that Hooksett families are still choosing Manchester schools in large percentages, and they deserve to continue to receive the attention and oversight that this board should be providing. This motion is simply an attempt to reopen the lines of communication and see what state the Manchester schools are in from the perspective of problems we knew about this past year, and give our full support to the Hooksett children attending Manchester schools. Finally, with the constituents I speak with who are generally happy with the Manchester schools, they all seem to agree that it would be better with less violence within the schools. I would like to find out if the Manchester schools keep reports on violent acts within the schools, and I would like to compare this with the last 5 years. If there is a problem there, perhaps this board could come up with ideas to share with our counterparts on the Manchester Board of School Committee to lower the acts of violence our children are exposed to.
Again, I commend Mr. Liskaj for reminding us of this. We have been totally taken up with the contract issues here, and I think we do need to go back and take a look at this, and I would certainly support this motion. And Mr. Liskaj's information reminds me that I don't believe we ever stopped the request to get the bi-weekly class size information. I think the summer in the agreement came, and none of us were thinking about it. So I think it is certainly some information that we should get.
I think it's pretty simple. I mean, if this was information that Dr. Littlefield was already getting last year, and we haven't asked for it for some months, or maybe they just haven't provided, I don't think it's a huge deal. I'm kind of weird on tying the whole violent acts thing to it, but maybe make that a separate motion or something, I don't know. I don't know if that assumes that, you know, we're telling them they have violent schools or something, that's my only concern. The rest of the stuff looks really reasonable.
Cheryl?
It's obvious to me that Dr. Littlefield will eloquently speak with the superintendent. I think that this information is important information. However, I do think that the way this is written could be really taken poorly, especially if we were actually trying to engage Manchester and keep them together. So yes, I will support this. I just wanted to point that out, and I know that I have great faith in Dr. Littlefield that this motion won't be carried the same way when he speaks with the superintendent in Manchester.
So I would entertain a motion for an amendment if anybody has any recommendations. I think Mr. Denbo's suggestion is that they could interpret it the incorrect way with the violent acts. So I'm not opposed to removing that. It is a real concern that I'm hearing from people. So the data could tell us that it's decreasing, which is good news, giving Manchester the opportunity to show that in the data. You shouldn't be afraid to look at data, but if somebody has a different way of asking for that, I'm not opposed to it.
I have confidence in Dr. Littlefield. You know, I think Dr. Littlefield always executes the motion and many times asks us for specificity is what we're asking him for. So I don't think he's going to go to Manchester and recite this. So I think it's, you know, the more detail we have in there, and I have heard that issue brought up last year. It was brought up. You know, it's a rough place to be and so forth, but I don't remember us really getting any data. So, yeah, I think it's a good piece of data for us to have.
So, Dr. Littlefield, do you feel comfortable with, I mean, you don't have to ask this verbatim, but you get the gist. I just want an update on the data of stuff we were looking at last year that we haven't looked at for quite a while.
I'm reading it. Yeah, the only thing that I would ask you to do maybe is to remove, because the motion becomes part of the public record. It's also on this acts of violence compared to the last 5 years. I'm willing to bet every cent that Mr. Pearl has in his wallet tonight that Manchester does not have that readily available. And to comply with it, I think, would be an undue burden. To not comply with it is, so I'd leave it just, like to see reports if they exist on violent acts occurring within Manchester High School. Period.
That's fair. I'd like to amend my motion to remove the words after Manchester High School, the last sentence that says that Hooksett children attend this year compared to last 5 years.
Second.
Second.
Is there any discussion on that?
I'm sorry, that's good. Did I just say that? Okay, so that's going to be eliminated.
Yes.
And then,
Yep, go ahead. We haven't voted on it. He's just making sure he...
the other thing I would ask again, because this is for the record, do you really want me to ask the superintendent why we're not getting the reports? Or do you want me to ask her to reinstitute the reports? Because she's going to say, because I'm new, and you did this with, you made this request of Tom, nobody said anything to me. Do you want them? I mean, I don't want to be confrontational and put her on the spot.
Sure.
I think you really don't want to know why, but can we start getting them?
Sure.
And we vote on the First Amendment and then address the second one?
All those in favor of the, removing deficit superintendent this year compared to the last 5 years? That was the motion to remove that, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor of removing that, please signify by saying aye.
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 I'd like to make a motion to amend the motion further to strike the first line of the motion and to replace it with, to ask Superintendent Littlefield to contact the Manchester Superintendent with a request to continue the updates, bi-weekly updates on class sizes.
I'll second that.
I think Dr. Littlefield makes a good point. He could answer his first question by just coming back to us with his current one and just saying exactly what he said, because she's new and wouldn't start the bi-weekly reports, because the question was just, why aren't you? So, yeah, good change.
All those in favor of the second amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any more discussion on the motion? All those in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0.